Hello everyone. So in this session we'll be seeing the advanced TDL concept, actions and events framework. So let's go through the topics covered in this section. So first we'll be going through a small recap of actions that was already covered in the basic TDL classes, and then we'll go through the global actions, then the object specific action, then some attributes of the action, and we'll go to the event framework. First let's start with a recap of actions. So what is an action? So action is nothing but a state or process of acting or doing, and they are the activators of specific functions with a definite result. And in TDL, actions are broadly categorized into global actions and object specific actions, where global actions are those which are not specific to a user interface object, and object specific actions, as the name itself denotes, it is specific to a user interface object. And global actions can be originated by a menu, button or key, or a field, whereas object specific actions are originated by a menu, form, line or a field. And global actions are performed on a report or a menu, whereas object specific actions are performed on the relevant interface object. Some examples of global actions are create, display, alter, print, etc. And object specific actions are line up, line down, form accept, form reject, etc. So we can specify action with the action keyword, and then we specify the action name, which can be display, line down, form accept, etc. And some of the actions require action parameters and some of them don't. So when the action parameters is required, the parameter is specified, some don't. When it doesn't, the parameter is not specified. Example, the action display requires a parameter of a report, whereas the action line down doesn't require any parameter. So whenever an event occurs, an actions or a sequence of actions can be initiated. So what is an, so for example, when I press the key or a button, some action gets initiated. So that is called when an event occurred. When I press the key, some action gets initiated. So the events which we'll be going through later in the later section, so they are broadly classified into two types. That is, one is user driven events and one is system driven events. User driven events are those which require user interaction. For example, click on a button or click on a menu item. So these require interaction of user. So these are called user driven events. And those which do not require user interaction, for example, application start or ending of the application, or saving of a form, or printing of an invoice. So these are called as system driven events, which are triggered implicitly and they do not require user intervention. So next we will see where can the actions be associated. So when it is a user driven event, then action is associated with the key or a button or a menu or a field. So you can associate action with the key or a button using the attribute action. You can associate an action with the menu along with the menu item, and you can associate an action with the field using the action keyword. So next, action association, we'll see how can we associate action with the system driven events. So you can associate the action with system driven events with system::event definition. In system::event definition, using the event keyword, you can provide the action, and also you can provide the actions in certain definition levels using on attribute and event keyword. So we'll be seeing all this in the later section. So for example of an action is given here. There is a field where report is displayed. So display is an action here, and it requires a parameter and an optional parameter which returns logical value. So there is an example of an action, and there is an example of an action which doesn't require any parameter. Example, action export report. So action export report. So this exports the report that is in context. Then what is the execution process of the action? So action always has an originator and an executor. Originator is from where the action originates. Executor is on which object is the action getting executed. So originator, it is an object in which the key is defined or who originates the particular action. So whenever we have defined the key, so wherever we have defined a key, it becomes the originator. And executor is an object in which the specific action is executed, generally for object specific actions. Line down is executed on a line definition, so line becomes the executor. So originator is the object from where the action originates, and executor is where the action gets executed. So next we'll go to action evaluation process. Whenever the action is triggered as a result of a key pressed, the process searches from the interface object definition in which the key is associated. So this also you would have gone through this concept in the basic TDL class. That is, if you have, for example, you have associated a key called control C in your field, and also you have associated it in your line, and also you have associated the key in your form. So when you press Ctrl C, the system won't know which Ctrl C has to be executed. So it starts searching from report to the field, and whichever is lower in the hierarchy gets the higher priority. That is, the Ctrl C key which is specified in the field will get the higher priority, and that particular action will be executed. So first we will go through the global action. So global actions are those which are not specific to a user interface. So we have global actions, menu and display. So these are the actions which invoke a menu or a report in display mode. That is, the action menu will invoke a menu, whereas the action display will display a report which is provided as a parameter. So the syntax you write is, you write menu : you give the name of the menu. In the same way, display, you give the name of the report. So an example of adding a menu is, in Gateway of Tally, you can add a key item, and from there you can invoke a menu. Here a menu called sample final accounts is invoked, and you can define your own menu. So let's see an example. So here in menu Gateway of Tally, I have added an item before the quit option, and I've given the name of the item as action and events. And what this item will do is, it will invoke a menu called actions_events. So this menu is an action, that is, this action will invoke a menu which is given as the parameter. So this is the menu which I have created. So when I press actions and events framework, when I select this item in the menu Gateway of Tally, then this particular menu which is defined by me will get executed. So this is an example of action menu. So in the same way, you would have been already aware of how to use the display action, where you display a report. So next we'll be going through the global actions: alter, execute and create. So these are nothing but these are the global actions meant for the purpose of opening a report in the mode specified. So alter mode, execute mode and create mode. These actions activate the report in create or alter mode. That is, it will open these actions, all the three actions will open the report in edit mode. So in case of create or execute, whenever you open a create or open a report specifying create or execute action, then you're opening report to add some values. So whereas when you're opening a report using action alter, then the user enters the report to modify already entered values. So the syntax is you specify either alter or execute or create and give the report name. So let's see an example of this. So execute a report in execute mode will be, you must be already aware of the execute mode, where in edit mode the report will be open and you can user can enter values and save the values. Whereas let us see how you can open the report in create mode. So in my menu I have added a item action create, and I have opened my report in create mode. Let us see what the report does. What is the purpose of this report is, in this report I'm actually creating the ledgers, so that's why I'm opening the report in create mode. So I have a report and I have associated object ledger in the report level, obviously because I have to create ledgers, so I have specified the object ledger in my report. And then I have two fields. So in one field I'll give the name of the ledger which I want to create, and another I'll select the parent or the group under which my ledger should get created. So it's very simple. You just open the report in create mode from your key item. So I have told create, that is my action, and I open my report in create mode where I have associated object ledger in my report level, and I have two fields. One is in which I enter the ledger name, and another in which I select the group name under which my ledger should get created. And I have storages so that these values get stored and my ledger is created. So let's see the output of this. So I have action create. When I go, I can give the name. So I'll give some staff expenses, and I can select any group. I'll select indirect expenses and accept the screen. So let's see if this particular ledger is created or not. So it is created. So this is how you can open your reports in create mode, and you can create the objects. So moving on to the next global action. So next global action is modify object. So what does this global action modify object do? So this action is used to pick up any object and it will alter the same in display or edit mode. For example, you want to alter some value of an object. For example, I want to alter the value of some ledger cash. I want to alter the opening balance of my ledger cash. So in that case, I can use the action modify object. So this picks up any object that you have specified and alters the same in. This can be used both in display and edit mode. And with the help of this, you can also alter multiple values by using comma separated method value pair. And this is the syntax. So modify object : you give absolute or relative object specification. Then if you have some sub object specification, you can give that, and then you give the method name which you want to alter, and then you give the value. And you can give multiple method value pair if you want to alter multiple methods of your object. So let's see some examples. So in this particular example, there is a key that is used to modify some value of an object, and the object is ledger. And which ledger? It is the ledger called my ledger. So in this particular example, the opening balance of the first bill allocation of the ledger, my ledger, is modified to 1000, and then the name of the bill allocation is modified to my new bill, and then there is a dot address, first dot address. So that, what does dot mean? Dot mean that I'm going to the owner scope. So right now we were in the bill allocation scope, so when I write dot I go to the ledger scope, and in that ledger scope, address, first dot address. So we know that address has multiple lines, so the first line of the address is changed to Hongasandra, Bangalore, and then the comma, opening balance. So we are in the ledger context, so the opening balance of the ledger is changed to 1000. So existing ledger, my ledger, is altered with new values for opening balance for existing bill and opening balance of ledger and address. So let us see an example. So I have written a code in which I have added a button in my menu, and in the menu what I am doing is I am modifying object. Which object? The ledger object, of name packaging charges, and I am changing the parent of the ledger packaging charges to group indirect expenses, and then I am also changing the opening balance of that particular ledger to 30,000. So let's first see what is the present value of ledger packaging charges, because before that we have to see whether there is there any ledger called packaging charges. So I have a ledger called packaging charges, so it is under direct expenses and it doesn't have any opening balance. So with the help of our code, we are going to change the parent, that is change the group under which the ledger is, as well as we are going to set the opening balance for this particular ledger. So let's see. So if you see modify led, this is the button which I had added. Now we will just press this button, so the action should have been executed. So let's see if the action is executed or not. So done. So we, in our code, we had changed to the parent to indirect expenses, and we had set the opening balance to 30,000. So in this way you can modify any value of any object by specifying modify object. So how do you specify the modify object action? You say modify object colon, then you give absolute or relative specification. So here I wanted to alter the value of the ledger packaging charges, so I have given ledger column of packaging charges dot parent, and then I give the value. So in the same way I can give many method value pairs if I want to modify multiple methods. So here I am modifying the method parent as well as the method opening balance. In the same way, if you want to modify some other method, then you can say comma and you can add the method name, and then you colon, you can add the value. So in the same way we can add more methods. So let's try adding let's try changing the value of narration field of the ledger packaging charges. So narration is the method in which the value of the notes is stored, where in the ledger you can give notes in your ledger. So that is, so this particular field value entered is stored in the method narration. So let's just change that to changed and see if we are able to alter the method. Alt-M. So we are changed. So in the same way we can modify any method. For example, let's try modifying the ledger called sundry creditor. I have a ledger called sundry creditor. Let's try changing its opening balance to 50,000 and let's change its address. So we'll change the first line of the address to TSPL Bangalore. First let's see, we have the sundry creditor ledger. Yeah, we have. So here address Hongasandra Bangalore is already there. Let's see what happens when our action is executed. Alt-M. Sundry creditor. So our action has modified its first address line to TSPL Bangalore and its opening balance to 50,000. So in the same way you can use modify object to modify any value of any object. So moving on to the next topic. So we saw modify object where you could modify the values of object in display and edit mode. So there is one more action called set object values, and this has a similar effect as the modify object action, but this can be used only in the edit mode of a report, and it changes the value of an object in the current context. So whatever is the object which is in the current context, the value of that can be changed with this. So the syntax is action colon set object values colon, you give the sub object path and then the method dot method name and its value. So let's see an example of it. So set object value. So what I have is I have a report. In this report what I am doing is, in this report there are two fields. In one field I have a table of which shows the list of ledgers, and there is one more field which just shows the parent of this ledger selected. And then this first field where I select the ledger, I have deleted all the keys which is default associated with the field, and I have added a key called let alter. And in this key let alter, I am saying that the key is enter. When I press enter, a list of actions should happen. That is, first action is field accept. So we have an action called field accept, that is object specific action. We'll be going to it later. So what this field accept does is it accepts the field and goes to the next field. That is the that is what the actions field accept does. And this particular field accept action, it will be associated to all the fields. So when you press enter, field action, the field accept will happen. So the key, this is a key called field accept, and this particular key is associated to all the fields in the TDL, including the default fields as well as the fields which you specify in the in your TDL. So when I press enter, field accept happens. So what I want now is when I press enter, a list of actions should happen. So I have deleted that the key that was associated with that, and I have added a key where a list of actions happen. First one is field accept and second one is the action which I want to specify. So in this particular key, in the second key, what I have given is I have called a function and I have passed a parameter parameter, that is nothing but the selected ledger name. So this is the field in which I'm selecting the ledger. And then what this particular function does is it just sets the opening balance of whichever ledger I select to 1000 rupees. So we have to specify in which object context it is, because set object value will alter the values which is in the current object context. The current object context which I want is the ledger which I select. So I have specified object ledger, and as in this parameter my selected ledger name will be there, so that I have specified. And then this is my target, because I am setting the value to it, so I have set it as target. And then I am executing this action, set object values, and I am changing the opening balance, and this is the value. This is the method and this is the value, and then I am altering the target with this value. So let us see how this particular function works. So I have set object value, I select, and I select a ledger whichever I want. So let us select staff expenses. So staff expenses is indirect expenses. So what should have happened when I have selected staff expenses? When I press enter, first action that happens is the field gets accepted, and second action that happens is the opening balance of the ledger selected should get changed to 1000 rupees. So let's see, let's go to ledger alter staff expenses, and if you see, the value was changed to 1000 rupees. So let us do one thing, let us change it to 9000 rupees and see if the value is getting changed. So again I'll select staff expenses, and it is changed. So it's not necessary that you have to accept the form and only then the value gets set. It's not like that. As soon as you press the enter button, as soon as you select some ledger and press enter, the value gets changed. For example, I'll press cash, done. So now itself the value, the opening balance of the cash would be changed to 9000. Let's go and see. Let's not accept this form. So if you see, it is changed to 9000. So this is how you can use the set object values. You can use it in your function, in your button key, or anywhere you want to change the value of the present object in current context. So moving on to the next action. So we know that we can take the backup of our company through Tally. We can take the backup of our company. So how can we take backup? By writing some TDL. If you want to take backup in some instance, how can we write it in our TDL, so that through our code itself a company backup can be taken. So for this, so backup company, it allows the backup of multiple specified company at a click of button. So this particular action, with the help of this, it's not that you can take a backup of one company, you can take backups of multiple companies. So let's see the syntax. The syntax is backup company, separator character, and there is a string formula. So what goes in the string formula is the destination, the source, the company name, and the company number. And this all four things this all four things have to be separated with the separator character, and whichever separator character is being used, that should be specified in as the first parameter. So separator character, it is this character used to separate the parameter. So whatever the string formula you are giving, whatever these four parameters you need to separate with the help of separator character, which is being specified, which will be specified as the first parameter. And a string formula, it must evaluate to the values in the following order separated by the separator character. So it is destination, source, company name and company number. So destination is nothing but the path where the backup file should be stored, and source is the path where the backup data, where the company data is available and from and that is to be taken, that the backup of that data has to be taken. And company name is the company name of which backup, of which you are going to take the backup, and company number is the company number of the company whose data needs to be taken as a backup. So let's see an example here. So there is a button in which the action backup company is specified, and here they are using a separator character comma. So here this first parameter is the destination, C is to slash, and then the next parameter is the source, and then next is the company name, that is Global Enterprises, and next is the company number. So this first set is the information that is required to take the backup of Global Enterprises company. Now they have specified one more company detail whose backup needs to be taken. There is a destination, there is a source, and there is the company name, TDL demo, and then the company number. So in this particular example, backup of two companies will be taken. So this is the advantage with the help of backup company action. You can take multiple backups of multiple companies. So let's see how we can do it. So I have a button added in my menu, and what the button does is it's calling a function, and in this function I have used the action backup company and have used the separator character comma, and the string formula I have set it in the variable. So in this variable I have given the destination, the variable is backup and the variable is set here. So I have first, we know that the first parameter would be the destination. So let's see, the destination in my case is e/backup. So I have a folder called backup in the E folder. So I have backup folder in E drive. So I have specified the destination, and then I have separated with the comma, and then I have specified from what is the path where the data resides, which is to be taken as backup. So SV current path, this particular variable has the data path of your current company. So whatever the data path, so this particular data path will be available in the variable SV current path. So I have used that variable, and then comma, I have to give the company name. So I want to take the backup of my current company, so I have written SV current company. If you want to take the backup of some other company, please specify the name of it. And then I have specified the next parameter is the company number. So company number is 10,000, sorry. So my company number of TDL training is 10,000. So I have specified that. So now everything is set. So we have given backup company action, specified the separator character, and given the string formula also. So now let's see if the backup will be taken or not. So I have added a button which does this work for me. So I'll just press the button. So the backup is taken. So just to see if this is working or not, I had just logged the destination path, the current path, and the company number. So it is all correct. My destination is E backup, and then this is the current data path of my company, and then the company number. So let's see if there is backup is taken or not. So the backup is taken. So this is how you can take backup. So here I have taken backup of one company. You can take the backup of multiple companies. Now let's go to the next one where you have taken the backup. Now if you want to restore the company to some path, then how do we do it? So we have an action called restore company. So this helps in taking up the backup of one or more companies at a single click of a button. So this also has the same syntax it follows, where it has a separator character and a string formula. In the string formula you give destination, source, company name and company number. So let's see that. So I have one more button which does this work for me, that is the restore company button. So in this button I have called a function. In the function I have used the restore company action. So now again restore company action I have specified the separator character and then the variable in which my string formula is there. So in the string formula I have given the destination. This destination is where my the restored data should go. So I have told that it should go in the E drive backup data folder. Let's see if this folder exists or not. If the folder which you have specified in destination, if it doesn't exist, then Tally creates that folder. So I have a folder called backup data already, which is empty, and then I have separated with the separator character and then given the source. So this formula says destination, but this value is the source from where the backup file is there, the tbk file in whichever folder it is there. So that path of that folder should be given. So in my case I already took a backup to the folder to the folder called backup in E drive. So that will be my source for restoring the data, because that is where I have the tbk file. So I have specified that, comma, the company name which I am restoring. So that is the current company itself, and then the company number is 10,000. So now let's see. This is the button which restores company. Let's just select that. So our company is restored. Let's go to the folder and check if it is restored. Yes. So my company is restored. So like this you can take the backup of your company as well as restore your company. So next we have an action which is called browse URL. So what it does is it is used to open any web browser passed as URL formula to the parameter. So if you want to open some website or you want to open some file, then you can use this browse URL action. So the action exec, that is execute command, is an alias to browse URL. So the syntax is, in the key you give action browse URL and then you specify the URL formula, and you have, if you have some command line parameter, you specify that, which is optional. So here just a example is given. So in the field, there is a field hyperlink field where it is set to Tally Solutions Private Limited, and there is a key associated to this field. And what does the key do is it executes the action browse URL. So when I press that button, the Tally Solutions website gets opened. In the same way, the action, it also can be used to launch any application followed by the command line parameters if the application accepts it. That is, in this particular case, we an application, the notepad application is being launched, which is of the name browse url.txt. In the same way, you can open any application with its name. If you want to even launch the Tally application also, you can specify Tally and launch that particular application. So let's see how the browse URL works. So let's add a new file, browse URL. So let's just alter our menu. I'm just copy pasting it and I'll change this. So let's add a button to browse, browse, and then here I'll give action browse URL. So I'll give http www.tallysolutions.com. So when I select this particular button, Tally Solutions website should get opened. Okay, and I didn't change the key name. So we have browse. Let's see if Tally Solutions website is getting opened. Yes, it is getting opened. So now in the same way, let us see if we are able to launch Tally application with the help of this. See, we can open. I have opened one more Tally application. So I have given action browse URL. I have given the exe name, that is Tally, and my one more instance of Tally is getting opened. So in this way you can open the different applications. So now I'll say open a notepad called, so let us open some file. So I'll open this particular file. So my file is getting open. So in the same way, you can try launching any application which is there in your system. So let's now move on to the next concept. So next there is something called HTTP post action. So what it does, it helps in exchanging data with external applications using web services, and it submits data to a server over HTTP and gathers the response, and it enables a TDL report to perform a HTTP post to a remote location. And the syntax of this particular action is action : HTTP post, give the URL formula, its encoding, and the request report, the error report, and success report. So this particular action will be covered in detail in the integration capabilities session. So next we have some action called refresh data. So in a network, if any report is left open and subsequently viewed later, there is a possibility that few more entries would have gone in the system entered by other users. So in this case, in order to update the report to the newer version, a new action called refresh data is introduced. This particular action will refresh the data in memory automatically as and when required. So in a multi-user environment, when there are 10 people who are sitting and entering data into Tally, and you have some report, you're viewing some report, and it is just left open, and someone else has entered some more entries in the system, so that time the report obviously has to show the changed value. So in order to get that changed value, you can use the refresh data action, with which you can get the changed value. So this is how you can specify. You can just specify a key and execute the action refresh data. So next we have a very interesting action called copy file. So with the help of this action, you can copy your file from one location to another within the same system. You can also upload it to a given path in the FTP side, and also you can download from the FTP side to your local folder. So the syntax is copy file : the destination file path, that is the destination where you want to copy the file, and the source from where the file needs to be copied. So these paths can be either your local system path, or it can be the FTP path. So here there is an example. So let's see how we can use it. So we'll just see how we can upload the file to the FTP. So here I have a button in my menu which calls a function, inside which I am using copy file action and uploading a file to the FTP site. So I have used the function make FTP name to set the path of FTP inside my destination parameter. So here I have to give first the destination and the source. The destination would be the FTP path where I need to copy the file, and then the source is from where I need to copy the file. So destination, to make the FTP name, to make the FTP path, I am using the make FTP name. So in this, you first give the first parameter is your FTP site, the FTP site and its port if it is there. So I have used ftp.tallysolutions.com with 12,000 as the port, and then you give the username and password. If your FTP site is protected with username and password, you give the username and then the password. So that is there in these two system formulas. And then the last one would be the folder and the file in which you want to copy the content. So I want to copy the content to let's say a folder called TDL training, So in this particular folder and in this particular file, I want to copy the content from my file. So my file is in this particular path, that is the content of the action.txt. I want to copy it to the file action.txt in the folder TDL training. So let's see how the FTP site currently looks like this. Let's see if there is a folder called TDL training. So there is no folder called TDL training. If the folder is not there, then that particular folder will be created internally. And if the file specified is also not there, then that particular file also will be created internally. So now we have given the syntax. So we have specified the destination, we have specified the source. So let's see in this particular source if action.txt file is existing or not. So yes, it is there. So let's execute this action. So we have the button copy files which will do the uploading to FTP. So let's just press that and see if the file gets copied or not in our FTP site. Just refresh it. And let's see if there is something called TDL training. Yes, a folder called TDL training is there. And if you see, in that particular folder, action.txt has got uploaded, and it has the content which was there in my local directory. So this is how you can upload the file to the FTP. In the same way, you can use the you can also download files from the FTP. So where just you need to swap these two. Matlab, the first parameter is the destination where you want to copy the file, and the second parameter is source from where you want to copy the file. So if you're downloading from a FTP site, your destination would be your local system path, and your source would be the FTP path. So let's move on to the next action. So next action is called execute TDL. So execute TDL, this has been introduced to programmatically load TDL, perform some actions, and subsequently unload the TDL or keep the TDL loaded for the current tally sessions. So through your program, you want to load the TDL, execute some actions, and unload as soon as action is performed. You can use this, or even you can use this if you want to load TDL, execute action, and keep the TDL throughout the tally session. So that means once I come out of tally session, this particular TDL will be unloaded. So what is the syntax? The syntax is execute TDL colon. You'll give the TDL or your TCP path, and then there is a keep TDL loaded file. So this is the file which will say whether the TDL should be kept in the tally even after executing the action which I have specified or not. So the default value of it is yes, which means even after executing the action which is specified here, even then the TDL will be still present in the system. If you specify as no, then the TDL gets unloaded. executed TDL will be unloaded after the execution of the specified action. So let's see the example. So here action is the global action to be performed, that is display, alter, call, you can call any function or something like that, and action parameters are the parameters on which the action gets executed. Now there is an example. So there is a function here, and the function in the function there is an action execute TDL which is specified, and then there is a path of the TDL which needs to be loaded, that is given as a first parameter, and there is a specification called no. It says no here. So that means once I execute the action which is specified in this execute TDL action, then this particular TDL will get unloaded. So what is the action that is specified? To display the balance sheet. So once I display the balance sheet, my TDL gets unloaded. Okay, fine. So in that particular TDL which is specified here, which is BS title change.tdl, what they are doing in this is changing the title of the report balance sheet to TDL executed programmatically. So what happens now? When I've called this function execute TDL with the help of the action execute TDL, this particular TDL where the balance sheet report title is changed will get loaded, and then after that the balance sheet gets displayed. So when I display my balance sheet, I'll see that my title of the balance sheet, which is default, in default the title of the balance sheet is balance sheet. So now the title of the balance sheet gets changed to TDL executed programmatically. So once the balance sheet gets displayed, that is the action is performed. So now what happens? This particular TDL will be unloaded. So let's see what is the next step of the function. Okay, fine. So here it says that here the report balance sheet would be displayed with the title TDL executed programmatically. That is a change title as per the TDL which is loaded will get displayed. Now the next line of the function says display balance sheet. So now what should happen? So now will my balance sheet show the changed title or will it show the default title? So let's see. Whereas in the second report the title is balance sheet, since the attribute keep TDL loaded flag is set to no. So since this particular flag is set to no, the second step of my function also says display balance sheet, and this the default title itself will be there and not the title which I have changed in the TDL. So this is how your execute TDL works. So we can try doing this. So in this we will have a function. So this particular code will keep in one more file. So let's just put it on the E drive. Balance sheet title change. So the TDL which has to be loaded is ready. So now we have to give that path. So I have copied the path and now I'll change here. So done. So I have told no, that is after displaying the balance sheet you have to unload the TDL. Now I am displaying the balance sheet. So this is done. So now we have to call this function somewhere. So we will call this function in our menu. Execute TDL. And we are calling the function. So done. So let's see now what is the effect. So before that, let's go and see what is the balance sheet title which has. Okay, so balance sheet title is now balance sheet itself. Now we will go to our menu and execute this. Okay, so now the title of the balance sheet is changed to TDL executed programmatically. So it is changed according to the TDL that got loaded through the execute TDL action. So now when I come back, what happens? Again, the second step of the function will be executed. Again, balance sheet is getting opened, and if you see now, the title of the balance sheet is the default balance sheet, because after the action that got executed first time through the execute TDL action, that is display balance sheet, after this particular TDL got unloaded because we specified no. Now what I'll do, I'll just specify this as yes, which means that this particular TDL needs to be loaded in the system until the tally session ends. So now let's go and select this. So it is TDL executed programmatically, and it is again TDL executed programmatically because the TDL is still loaded in the system. So if you see here in your list of TDLs which you loaded, this particular TDL is still loaded in the system through the execute TDL action. So now let's move on to the next action is load TDL. So the load TDL has been introduced to load the TDL or TCP dynamically for only the current session of tally. So even the execute TDL also does the same thing. It loads the TDL or TCP, but in case of execute TDL, performing an action had to be done, and also execute TDL had an option of removing the TDL as soon as the action was done, or you could also retain the TDL. You had an option of whether removing the TDL or retaining the TDL for the current tally session. In this case of load TDL, if once you load the TDL or TCP, then that will be loaded for the current session of tally. So in this case, if you have given a load TDL and given a path of the TDL, and in case that TDL is already loaded because you have already configured it, or because you have set it in the tally.ini file, then in that case it won't get again reloaded. So let us see an example here. So an example shows that you have just action, you say load TDL and you give the path. So let's try this action. So in this we set execute TDL. So now what I'm going to do is I will say load TDL and give the path. So let's load the same TDL and just check. So I'll just comment this for time being. So I'll go and I'll I'll press this button, press this menu item which calls the function. So now I have loaded the TDL. Let's see if the TDL is loaded. Yes, the TDL is loaded here. So let's now check the balance sheet, if its title has changed or not. Its title is changed. Now I'll close the tally and now I'll open again and let's see if the TDL is still loaded or not. No, the TDL is unloaded. So let's try to load again. So it must be loaded. Yes, it is loaded. So this is how you can use load TDL action and load the TDL. So since you have load TDL action, it is obvious that you will have unload TDL action also. So we have unload TDL action also. So with this action, you can unload the TDL files, including the ones which you have added in INI, as well as which you have added dynamically using load TDL or execute TDL, as well as which you had configured in Tally. So all of them you can unload using this unload TDL action. So the syntax is unload TDL : you specify the path of the TDL or the TCP file, or you can also give the GUID of your TCP. So let's check if we can do that. So we will write one more function, unload TDL, and here we will write unload the TDL. Let's see. So these particular TDLs are loaded. So what I'll do is I'll just load these TDLs. So now what I will do is I'll unload the samples, this particular TDL, and also BS title chain. This we added using load TDL action. So I'll try to unload these two. So I'll just copy the path. Okay, now I'll have one more unload TDL, and now I'll specify. Sorry, I have to specify this path. TCP path, I have specified the samples.tcp, and then I have to specify this TDL path which I loaded. So let's execute this particular function and see whether the TDLs are getting unloaded or not. So we need to call this function. So let's call it from our menu. So we have added the menu item which will call our function. So let's see what happens. Okay, so we see that there are 3 TDLs loaded, in which we are going to unload the samples TCP which was already loaded. I had configured it in Tally, and we will unload this particular BS_title change TDL which was loaded with the help of load action. actions element framework, we'll go to unload TDL and unload it. Okay, we have unloaded, so this means that the two TDLs should not be listed in my TDLs. Let's see. So we see that the bs.tdl is unloaded and the samples is also unloaded. So if you go and see, you see that the samples is unloaded, it is showing in red. This means the samples.tcp will not have any effect in my tally. So this is how you can unload the TDLs. So the next action is the zip action. So zip action can be used to archive a set of folders or files, and it is useful when a single folder or a file source needs to be zipped into a target file. So we know that a set of files or a file can be zipped into a zip file. So if you want to zip some files and upload it somewhere, or you want to zip some files for some other work, then you can do it through the TDL itself. So the syntax is zip : you have to give the target file. Target file is the name of the zip file to be created along with the path, and then you give the source path. So source path is nothing but the folder or the files which needs to be zipped. The path of that should be given. And you can also give wildcard characters. For example, you can just give a path and say star.txt. So from that folder all the text files will get zipped. Password, you can assign a password for that targeted zip file which you are going to zip with this action. And then you have a overwrite flag which you can specify. So this will give an information to the system as to whether the already existing file needs to be overwritten or not. So your zip file, if you are zipping some files into a zip folder, if that folder is already present in your target file, then if you want to overwrite that particular file, you can say yes or no. That is, overwrite is a logical flag to specify the behavior of the action if the target file already exists. And there is the next flag, which is also a logical flag to specify whether to include the subdirectories available in the specified source path or not. So if the source path ends with a folder, the entire folder with the subfolder will get zipped irrespective of this particular parameter. And if the source path, if it ends with the file name pattern, that is with wildcards, then this parameter will be considered. If yes is specified, then all the files and subfolders matching the wildcard pattern will be included for zipping. If no is specified, then it will not get included. And the default value of this parameter is no. So now we have the next parameter, that is show progress bar. Show progress bar, you can say yes or no. So if you want to see a progress bar while the zipping action is going on, you can specify the parameter here. So from password to the show progress bar, all the parameters are optional. So this is an example where a targets or zip file is being created and tally.ini file is being zipped into target.zip, and there is a password that is given, tally, and then it says if the target.zip file, if it already exists in the current folder, then it should not be overwritten. So no specifies that. Now let us see an example of the same. So I have added an item in my menu and it calls a function. In my function, I have specified the action zip, and as per the syntax, I have given a target path in the system form, which is contained in system formula. So what I'm doing is, so whatever, this is my target path which I have given. I have told to zip all the files which is inside this folder into a zip file called code.zip, and then there is a source. Next I have to give the source from there, from where the file should be taken. Sorry, in the target I'll tell where my file should zip file should get created. So I have given this path, and I have given the zip file name. So you give the zip file name along with the path in the target. So I have given that, and then the source I have given the source from where the files need to be taken, and then the password I have given as tally, and then overwrite I have told yes, and then include subdirectories I have told no. Since I have not used any wild characters or I have not ended with any file name pattern, this particular flag will not be considered anyways. And now next I have said that I have told an yes to show the progress bar while zipping. So we have specified all the parameters. For time being, I'll comment the unzip part. So now let us see. So this is a folder in which I am going to put my zip file, and my zip file already exists here. I have told it to overwrite. First we'll see what is there in this zip file. So all the files are there in the zip file. So we'll just use some other naming convention so that we can be sure of whether it got zipped or not. Now I'll execute tally. In my function I have specified, I have logged the last result. That is, the last result will tell whether the last statement in the previous statement in your function was successful or not. So I'm just logging if my zipping action was successful or not. So I have to just select this item. Yes, so my zipping was successful, and let's see if there is a folder. Yeah, there is a folder, and this particular folder is password protected. So if I want to extract this folder, it must ask me the password. So it is asking for a password. So we have done it. So now there was something called wildcards. So let us see how we can use that particular functionality. So what I wrote was everything, zip everything which is there in this particular folder. So now I'll say zip everything in this particular folder which is only of type TDL. Let's create a file called codes.tdl. I want only those files of type TDL to be zipped. So when I am specifying some wildcards like this, now in this case my last but one parameter where I say whether to include the subdirectories or not, this particular parameter will be considered now. Now I have told no. What does no mean? It means that in my particular folder which is code, in that if there are some subfolders and if that subfolders contain .tdl files, then that shouldn't be included in my zip file. So that is what no means. So now let us execute this particular action. So now I'll select this option again, and let's see if the file is zipped, and only the .tdl files have been zipped. And we told that none of the .tdl files which is in the subfolder should get zipped. So what is our subfolder? This is a subfolder. So there is something called let's see, for a TDL file, try.outs is a TDL file in a subfolder. So whether that is there in the zip file or not. If it should be, ideally according to the logic it shouldn't be there, and it is not there. So in the same way you can say yes. So when you say yes here, all the .tdl files that was inside the all the TDL files that was inside the subfolders will also be included. So let us execute that also. So now let us check again. So if you see, the .tdl files in the subfolder is also included. So this is how each parameters work for the zip action. So now we have seen the zip action. Let us go to the unzip action. So we know zip is when you zip the files or a folder into a zip file. So unzip is when you unzip this zip file into whatever contents is there inside it. So unzip action can be used to extract the original files from the zipped file. So the unzip syntax is almost similar to the zip one, except that the last but one parameter in our zip action, which was include subdirectories, it obviously doesn't make sense in unzip action. So that particular parameter is not there, except that all other parameters are there. So we'll see what does each parameter mean. Target folder, it is the path of the target folder where the unzipped file must reside. And then source file is, it is the name of the zip file that is to be zipped. So you have to give the name of the zip file along with the path. And then password is the password of the zip file you are going to unzip. Because if your zip file is password protected and if you have not specified password, then that particular zip file cannot be unzipped. And then there is an override. Though what override means in this unzip action is when you're unzipping the zip file, and if some of the files or folders which was in the zip file, if it already exists in the target folder, then whether it should be overwritten or not. The default value is no. And then show progress bar is if you want to see the progress of the unzipping action, then you say specify yes here, else you can specify no. So let's go to the code. So what I have done is in the same same function, I have first written the zip action, and then I have zipped first, and the same folder I am unzipping to one more path. So the target, so first I have given the target parameter, the target folder where the target path where my unzipped files or folders must reside. So I have given a target of a code folder inside the code folder. So I want in this particular folder I want a folder called code, and inside that I want all the files to get unzipped. So I have given the target. Now I need the source. So source is my zip file path. So the zip file path is I have given. So I have a zip file path here. I have a zip file called code.zip. So I have given that path. And then the password of this particular zip file is tally. I have specified that. Then override flag I have set it to yes. And the last one is whether the progress bar should be shown or not. I have told a yes here. And now then I'm just logging whether this unzip action, whether it is successful or not. So now let's see if this is successful. So when I run this particular item when I execute this particular function, now what happens is first is the zip action gets executed and then the unzip action gets executed. So we can just give some other name. The zip folder, we can give some other name as zip folder. So what we will do is this particular zip folder only we will unzip. So now I am selecting this item in the menu item, and first the zipping action is happening and then the unzipping action happened, and we got a yes, 2 yes. So zip action was also successful, unzip action was also successful. Let us see if it was successful or not. Yes, we have a folder called zip folder, a zip file called zip folder. So our zip action has been successful, and then we will see whether unzip action was successful. Okay, so my unzip action was also successful. So this is how you can use the zip and unzip action and zip and unzip the folders through your TDL. So moving on to the next action. So next action is the write ini action. So this action is used to add or alter some of the values of any parameter which is specified in your ini file. So the syntax of the ini file is like this. So you have the first parameter which specifies the path and the file name of the ini file, and then there is a section name. It is nothing but the name of the section in the ini file, and then there is a parameter. So you need to specify which parameters value you want to change in the ini file, and then there is a value parameter where you need to specify the value which you want to set to the parameter. If you have not specified any value, then the value which is already there for that particular parameter will be removed. And then there is an index parameter which is an optional parameter, and this is used when multiple values are set for that particular parameter. For example, you have user TDL, and in the ini file user TDL, yes, and there is a parameter called TDL. So for the TDL is multiple valued, and so if you want to specify or change some particular indexed value of it, then you can use the index. And if you have not specified any index, then the values are accepted for the last index parameter. So there is an example where the first parameter, the path, is assigned, then the second parameter, there is section name, that is tally, is assigned, and then the third parameter, that is the parameter which you want to for which you want to assign value, that is user TDL, and then you can specify the value. So before going to the actual functionality of this action, let's just take a look at the ini file which we have. Let's search for the ini file. So this is my ini file. So let's just see. So you see the section name which was specified there. This is the section name. We need to specify tally. And then in the example that user TDL was set to yes. Let's see if there is user. Yeah. So this particular parameter was set to yes. So what we will do is we will specify we will first set user TDL to no, and then we will try to set a value to the TDL parameter. So let us see an example. I have already written a code. So I have included a button which does an action of write ini. So here if you see, I am telling the system that this is the path of my INI file, and then this is the section, yes, correct, and this is the parameter to which I want to set value, and then I am saying this is the value which I want to set. So I have not specified any index, so this means my last, at the end this should get written. So let's see what happens. So demo TDLs, yeah, it's there, but it is not included. Let's see if that particular TDL is getting included or not. So this is my write INI button which executes the action. So I'll just select this. Okay, now the action should have been executed. Let's see what happens to our tally.ini file. So if you see, our file is added. So now let us just try changing the user TDL. We'll set the user TDL to no. User TDL. I'm setting it to no. So we'll write INI and we will open our INI file. So we set it to no and it is set to no. So this is how you can write to the INI. So we'll go to the next action. So now we are at the end of the global actions. So now next we will be seeing the object specific actions. So we'll start with menu actions. So menu actions are menu up, menu down, menu reject. So actions menu up, menu down, menu reject, etc. they act upon the menu. So menu actions means that all the actions of the menu all these actions will be acted upon the menu itself. So they are associated to all menus. So this particular menu up, menu down and menu reject, these are actually associated with all the default menus and the menus which you also write in your TDL. So these actions are already been specified in the keys, and those keys are already included in system is to menu keys. So by including keys to system is to menu keys, what happens is for all the menu keys, for all the menu, that those keys will get associated to. So these are some of the examples. So we can just go to Control J, key call, menu down. And if you see in system menu keys, all these keys are already assigned: menu up, menu down, menu execute, menu reject, menu bottom. So all these are already the keys which is associated with the menus, with the menu. So if you see, we will get all the actions. Menu up means that when you press the up arrow from one item to another in the upward motion, the cursor moves. That is menu up. Menu down is coming down, and when you escape, you come out of the menu. So all these are the actions which are already associated with all the menus of the Tally. So the next form of object specific action is the form actions. So they are form accept, form reject, form end. So these particular actions, they act upon the form. And these particular actions are like the menu keys. These are already all these actions are already associated in the keys, and those keys are already associated in the system form keys. So all the form, so each and every form of the default and the forms which is included through the customized TDL. So all the forms will be associated with all these actions already. So form accept is Control A, form gets accepted, and then when you quit, form gets rejected, and when you say Control End, you go to the end of the form. So all these keys are already associated to your forms through system is to form keys, and these keys respectively perform all these actions. So action form accept saves the current form. Action form rejects the current form, that is the current form is quit without saving. So this is just an example of the form accept key. So moving on to the next object specific action, that is line actions. So in the line level, what are the actions that can be executed? One is explode, next is display object, next is alter object. So explode, you would have already used this explode while creating explode report in your basic TDL classes. So action explode explodes a line further to display all the explode details specified in the line attribute explode. And then display object, this is used to display the object in context of the line. Alter object, it is used to alter the object in context of the line. So let us just see the explode one. So I have a report here where this particular report is the explode report. So this particular report lists down all the stock groups, and each stock group gets exploded into the stock items under it. So this is my report. So how do I get the explode functionality? So the line which is displaying the stock group, in that line I have a action called explode. So I specify explode and give the part which I need to explode, which has the details which needs to be exploded under the stock group, and I have a flag which says yes or no. So I have my explode report here. So this is how explode action works. Now let us go to the next action, that is display object. So if I want to display or alter this group 1 by pressing Control Enter, and display this particular group 1 by pressing Enter, then I should be able to do that. And these explode, display object and alter object, these actions are already included in the keys, and these keys are already included in system form keys. So each line will have this particular functionality. So let us just go to my line. So according since display object, so when I press enter on the line, when I press enter on this particular line showing the stock group, the stock group should get displayed. So I need to say which stock group, which report needs to be displayed. So I will say display stock group. So if you see here, I'm not saying anything like which stock group should be displayed or any such information I'm not giving. I'm just saying display the stock group. And since in my line level display object action is already associated in default in the system form keys, all this report will know which particular stock group it has to display. So I'll enter and my display action is working. So now I'll say alt. I'll open the report in alter mode, and even here the same rule applies. Since alter object action is already associated with each and every line, so it will know which object I need to open in alter mode. So I'll say control enter and my group is opening in alter mode. So this is how you can use, this is how the display object, alter object works. So moving on to the next type of action, which are the field actions. So what are the field actions? They must be the actions which are acted upon the field. So they are field copy, field paste, field erase and calculator. So the actions, all of these actions, they act on the field and can be defined in system form keys. So the action field copy copies the current field wherever the cursor is positioned, and it copies the current field contents into the OS clipboard, which will be available later when you want to paste the same. And action field paste the clipboard contents to the current field. And action field erase is used to erase the contents of the current field at a stretch without hitting the backspace or delete key. And action calculator is used for fields that require some computation, the result of which is to be returned to the field. Fields take amount, these fields take amounts or numbers as value require this action. So this is an example. So all of your field copy, field paste, field erase is also part of the system form keys, except the calculator action. So if you say field copy, when you say Control Alt C, the contents of the field gets copied, and when you say Control Alt V, content of the field gets pasted, and when you press escape, the field, whatever value is in the field, gets erased. So these are already present in each and every field of yours. So if you want to open the calculator panel by specifying some key in your field, then you can do so. So next let us move on to the next we'll be moving on to actions attributes. So the first one is selectable attribute. So selectable, so this particular attribute is a part inside a part definition. You can specify this particular attribute, and at part level the attribute selectable indicates whether the lines owned by the particular part can be selectable or not, and the default value is yes. So if you see in many of the reports where the line is getting repeated, you can press the space bar and select the particular line. So if in some case if you don't want a particular line to be selected, then in that case you can say selectable no. So then in line definition also this particular attribute is there. So at line level the attribute selectable indicates whether the line or the lines within the line is selectable or not. The default value of the selectable for repeated line is yes, and for non-repeated line it is no. So let us see how we can use this particular action attribute. So I have this particular code where we are already displayed the stock groups. So if I go to the tally screen of this, so if you see, I can select all these repeated stock groups. So if you want them to be selectable now, in my part I'll say selectable no. So if you see, I am not able to select. So this is how you can use the selectable attribute. So moving on to the next attribute, which is the scope attribute. So this scope attribute, this is the attribute of a button or a key, and the key action can be enhanced through this attribute. The scope for the actions can be specified. So what are the scope keywords which is available are current line, line, all lines, selected lines, unselected lines, and reports. So you can use this in combination with the selectable attribute of the part. So you can say that you can specify, if you remember in the daybook, there are many actions called remove line, delete option. So where whatever lines you select in the daybook, all those lines gets deleted or removed. So this is possible by specifying the scope attribute in the button or the key level. So let us try using this particular attribute. So what I have done is, so now I'll be showing how we can remove the selected lines in the report. So I have a button where I have said action remove line. So the action which is used to remove a particular line is remove line. So then you can specify the scope. The scope I have specified as selected lines. So what I want to do is, whatever the lines I select, those I want to be removed. So this particular action which is specified will be applied only on the selected lines. So first I have to do, the lines in the part must be selectable. Yes, by default it is yes itself. So now I'll go there and I'll select these two and I'll say remove line. So these lines are removed. So only the selected lines gets removed. So now I can say remove the unselected lines. So that what happens, whatever the lines which are unselected will get removed. So I've selected group 1, so shoes and vehicles should get removed. So they are removed. So next we have all lines. So I'll just say remove line, all the lines gets removed. So then we can say current line. So that time whatever the cursor, the line in context will get deleted, that is removed, sorry. So that means wherever is my cursor, that particular line gets removed. So I'm in the shoes line, so that line should get removed. So this is how you can use the scope attribute of the button. So to specify which are those lines on which the scope, the action specified in the button should be acted upon. So we have one more functionality where we can actually make a collection of only these selected lines, or make a collection of only these unselected lines, and we can perform some action on it by calling some function. So here I'll show a functionality. So here I showed how to remove line. Now instead of action remove line, what I want to do is I want to call a function where whatever stock groups which I select, I want to modify one of its method into some value. So right now in my function I am modifying the method is addable at the stock group level to yes. So first what I have to do is, I make a collection of only those objects which are selected. So how do I use? I use the data source attribute in the collection level, and I say in the report and data sources report selected. So all the selected lines in the report or the selected objects in the report will be collected in this particular collection. Then in the function I just walk through this collection, and at each level I am modifying the is addable method of the stock group to yes. So I will call this particular function in my button. So we'll just write one more button and include it in the report. So we'll say modify object and action is we'll be calling this particular function. So done. So from the button we are calling set this function in which it walks through all the objects which were selected and changes the method of the object. So we'll include this in our report. So before going to the function, we'll just see what are the values which is already available in these groups. So control enter. Okay, so we are changing this particular value. So this particular value is stored in the method called is addable, and we are changing it to yes. So by default it is no. So it is no here also, it is no here also. So what we'll do is we'll select some two groups and we will perform this action. We'll say modify object. So we have done our part. So let us see if the value got modified or not. So it has got changed. So we had selected group 1 and shoes and applied the action, and the values have been changed. So we had not selected vehicles, so this particular value in the vehicles should be as it is. It shouldn't have been changed. So before it was no, even now it should have been no, and it is no. So in this way you can use the selectable attribute in the part level and the scope attribute in the button level, and the data source attribute of the collection level, and perform such actions where you want to perform actions only on those selected objects of a report. So let's move on. So if these are the actions which are widely used, all the actions which are widely used and which is newly added has been covered till now. So if you want to go through some more actions and its applicability and everything, you can check the same in your developer in the actions tab in the Tally Developer 9. So we have many more actions. So if you click on each of them, you will get the brief about what the action does and the parameter listing and what each parameter should be. So all the details is available in the actions tab in the Tally Developer 9. So before ending the session, we will just go to a quick recap of what we did from the beginning. So I'll just run through the slides. So first we took up the recap of the actions, and then we started with the session with the global actions. So we started with menu and display action. So these actions are global actions. So menu invokes a menu and the display action opens the report in the display mode. So then we have alter, execute and create. All of these accept report as their parameter, and alter, execute and create will open your report in the edit mode, whereas alter will open your report in alter mode. Then we saw modify object, where you can pick up any object and alter the same in display or edit mode, and through this action you can actually change multiple values of that particular object, giving a separation of comma. And then we have set object values. So this is similar to a modify object action, but the only difference is this changes the value of an object in current context, and this works only in edit mode of the report. And then we have backup company. So through TDL you can take the backup of not just one company, you can take backup of multiple specified company at a click of a button. So in this particular event action, you say backup company colon, you give a separator character and then string formula. In the string formula, you first specify the destination and then the source and then the company name and then the company number. And all these 4 parameters needs to be separated by some separator character, and that particular separator character is given in as the separator character as in the second parameter of the backup company action. So destination is the path where the backup file is stored. Source is the path where the company data is taken for backup. Company name is the name of the company, and company number is the number of the company. So with this backup company action, you can take the backup of multiple companies with the separation of the separated character. And then we have restore company. The same syntax is followed. And then we have browse URL action. So this opens any web browser passed as URL formula to the parameter. And action execc command is an alias of browse URL. So the syntax is action browse, in the key it is action browse URL, you give the URL formula and then command line parameter if it is required. And this browse URL you can also use to launch any application, followed by command line parameter. For example, you want to launch Tally, you can say action browse URL Tally, then Tally gets opened from this particular button. So if you want to open some notepad, then you say action browse URL notepad and you give the name of the notepad file you want to open. Then we have a HTTP post action, which will be explained in detail in integration capabilities session. And then we have refresh data. So in a network, if any report is left open and subsequently viewed later, there is a possibility that few more entries would have gone in the system entered by various other users. So this happens in a multi-user environment. So to update the report, a new action called refresh data is introduced. So you just need to use this action and refresh the data in memory so that the recent copy of the report is available. Then we have copy file. So where you can copy files from one location to another within the same system, or you can upload files to FTP and you can also download files from FTP. So the syntax is copy file, you give the destination and destination file path where you want to copy the file. So this must be any expression that is evaluated to the valid local of FTP path. Source file path is from where you want to copy the file. So even this can be either local system path or the FTP path. So here we saw how we can upload file to the FTP. And then we have execute TDL. So if you want to programmatically load TDL, perform some actions subsequently and unload the TDL, or keep the TDL loaded for the current tally session, you can use the execute TDL action. So the syntax is execute TDL, the TDL or TCP path, and then you give a keep TDL loaded flag. So if it is yes, then that means the TDL or TCP that was loaded will be loaded until the tally, for the current tally session. If it is no, that means once the action is executed, the TDL will be unloaded from the tally session. So the action will be specified as the third parameter. So next is the load TDL. So this is introduced to load TCP or TDL dynamically for only the current session of tally. So this is similar to execute tally, only difference is here you cannot give any flag telling it should be loaded. It should get unloaded after action gets executed, or it should be loaded only for the current tally session. Here it means you are loading a TDL for the current tally session. And then if there is a load TDL, there must be unload TDL action. So this unload TDL action. So with this action, the local TDL files, including the ones which is added through INI or those added dynamically using actions load TDL or execute TDL, or which you have configured in Tally itself using F12, all those can be unloaded with this particular unload TDL action. Then we saw zip action, where you can archive a set of folders or files. So it is useful when a single or folder source needs to be zipped into a target file. So this is very useful if you want to if you want to upload some set of files into FTP, or you're downloading a zip file and you want to unzip those file contents, there is a event called unzip which can be used. So the zip action, you follow the zip action keyword with the target file. So it is the name of the zip file that is to be created along with the path. Then you give the source path, that is, it is the path of folders or files which needs to be zipped. So it can end with a folder or a file path, with or without a wildcard character. And then you can specify the password that has to be assigned to the zip file, and then you can give an overwrite option, that is that in the target file path, if already a similar zip file is available, then if you want to overwrite it or not. Then include subdirectory. So by default what happens is, irrespective of this particular include subdirectory logical flag, if you have given any folder, if your source path is ending with a folder, then in that folder all the files and subfolders, everything will be zipped into the zip file. But if your source path ends with the file path with a wildcard character, for example, if you say start.txt, that means in that folder only those text files will be zipped into the zip file, and that time include subdirectory will be considered. So that is, so if you say start.txt and if you have include subdirectory as yes, then all the text files in the folder and the subfolders will get zipped. And if this include subdirectory is no, then all the files, then only the files in the folder will get zipped, and those in the subfolders will be ignored. And then the last parameter is show progress bar. So when the zipping action is in progress, if you want to see a progress bar, then you can say a yes in this parameter. So next is the unzip action. So this also follows the same syntax, except that there is no include subdirectory flag here. So this has a target, source, password, overwrite, and show progress bar. So then we have a write INI action. So with this you can add and alter values for any parameter in the specified INI file. So you need to give the path of file name where the INI file is present, and there is section name, and then the parameter whose value you're changing, and then the value which you want to assign, and then the index is given, which is optional parameter, and it is given only when multiple values are accepted for the parameter, and if there is this particular index is not present, then the value of the last index will be updated. So if you have not given any value or index, then that parameter, then in the absence of any value, the existing value will be removed. So next we went to the object specific actions, where we go into menu up, menu down, menu reject, which are all default added in the system menu keys. And then the form actions, form accept, form reject, and form end, these are also added default in system form keys. And then the explode, display object, alter object, so these are also added in system form keys. And then the field actions, field copy, field paste, field erase, and calculator. So field copy, field paste, field erase are already added in system form keys as default. So we have action calculator, that is with the help of this you can open the calculator panel. Then we went to the action attribute. So first we went to the selectable. So in the part level or in the line level definition, if you want the lines to be the lines which is repeated, if you want that to be selectable when you press the space bar, then you can say selectable yes, and the selectable attribute, the value of the by default is yes. Then scope. So when from the key or button, when you're executing some action on a report, you can set the scope of the action saying current line, all lines, selected lines, unselected lines, and report. And then we saw that you can see the additional other actions available in the Tally Developer 9 in the action tab.